Hello everyone, my name is Triveni and today I'll be sharing my progress on my research project which focuses on evaluating accessibility in gamified learning platforms. This is part of my ongoing literature review where I'm examining how accessible these platforms are and what improvements can be made. The main objective of my project is to analyze the accessibility of gamified learning platforms. While gamification can improve engagement in education, many platforms still present challenges for learners with disabilities. My research aims to identify these barriers, assess platforms against accessibility standards, and suggest improvements that can make gamified learning more inclusive. Since my project is focused on literature research, my methodology involves selecting relevant academic papers, evaluating existing gamified platforms, and assessing them against established accessibility guidelines. Specifically, I'm using paper selection criteria where I'll be focusing on peer reviewed papers from the last 5 to 10 years that discuss both gamification and accessibility. For my evaluation approach, I will see how well gamified platforms follow Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and Section 508 standards, while also identifying common accessibility barriers across different platforms. I have reviewed 5 papers so far, and these are the key takeaways. Paper 1 explores accessibility barriers in gamified educational platforms. It highlights the lack of inclusive design in mainstream gamified system and emphasizes the importance of customizable interfaces for users with disabilities. Paper 2 is a large-scale review of gamification in education. It finds that most studies focus on engagement rather than accessibility and calls for more research on accessibility challenges within gamified education. Paper 3 analyzes how digital learning tools create barriers for students with disabilities. It discusses common accessibility failures in navigation, interaction, and visual design, emphasizing that accessibility should be a core design principle rather than an afterthought. Paper 4 examines how gamified learning impacts students with disabilities. While some game mechanics improve engagement, they also create accessibility issues. The paper suggests adaptive difficulty and alternative interaction methods as solutions. Paper 5 proposes an accessibility evaluation framework for gamified learning platforms. It highlights that no standard exists for measuring accessibility in gamification and calls for integrating WCAG and Section 508 into game design. I would like to address the challenges encountered in this project. Finding accessibility focused research in gamified education took longer than expected, and time management has been a challenge while balancing research and refining my methodology. Additional effort was required in identifying concrete evaluation metrics for accessibility. So, moving forward, I will be completing the literature review by analyzing more papers, apply accessibility guidelines to evaluate existing gamified platforms, develop recommendations for inclusive gamified learning design, and prepare a framework for the final report. This project aims to bridge the gap between gamification and accessibility by identifying best practices and areas for improvement. My final deliverable will be including an accessibility evaluation framework and recommendations for gamified learning platforms. These are the APA references of the papers that I mentioned in the previous slide. I look forward to your feedback on these following questions. Thank you so much for listening.